Every decision you make, from the smallest choice in your morning routine to the largest turning point in your career, is a reflection of how you think. Yet most people move through life reacting, not reasoning, following, not questioning. We are surrounded by information, opinions, and pressures that subtly shape what we believe and how we act. To think clearly in a noisy world is no longer a luxury, it is survival. That is the heartbeat of critical thinking mastery. A guide that does not merely teach you how to think, but how to think for yourself, deeply, deliberately, and independently, even when the world around you urges you to do the opposite. In every era, the individuals who stand out, the inventors, the leaders, the artists, the quiet revolutionaries, are not the ones who simply know more. They are the ones who see more. They notice patterns others ignore, question assumptions others accept, and make connections that others dismiss as impossible. They do not take reality at face value. They dissect it, rebuild it, and in doing so, reshape the world. Critical thinking mastery was written to awaken that same clarity within you, to help you sharpen the lens through which you view every idea, every challenge, and every choice, until your mind becomes a tool of precision rather than confusion. Imagine a life where every decision you make is guided not by impulse or influence, but by reason, awareness, and understanding. Where you can separate truth from noise, logic from persuasion, and evidence from illusion. That life begins with critical thinking, not the kind you memorize in textbooks, but the kind you live. It begins with learning to slow down the automatic reactions of the mind, to notice how your beliefs were formed, and to question whether those beliefs still serve you today. It begins with the courage to ask the hard questions, not of others, but of yourself. Most of us were never taught how to think. We were only taught what to think. From school to society, the emphasis has always been on answers, never on inquiry. But in the world beyond the classroom, answers are fleeting. They change with time, technology, and culture. The ability that never loses value is the ability to ask better questions. That is the essence of this book. It will take you on a journey to understand how your mind works, how your emotions distort your judgment, how biases quietly guide your choices, and how to dismantle the false confidence that comes from unexamined certainty. Critical thinking is not about being skeptical of everything. It is about being disciplined with your attention. It is about knowing when to doubt and when to trust, when to step back and when to act. It teaches you to listen beyond words, to see beyond appearances, to reason beyond emotion. It helps you recognize that most problems in life, whether in your relationships, your work, or your goals, are not born from a lack of intelligence, but from a lack of clarity. We fail not because we cannot think, but because we do not think deeply enough before we decide. This is where mental resilience becomes essential. Every time you challenge a long-held belief, you experience discomfort. Every time you confront your own bias, you feel resistance. The human mind naturally seeks confirmation, not contradiction. Comfort, not challenge. But true mastery of thought begins when you can sit with that discomfort, observe it, and move through it without letting it control you. Critical thinking mastery is not simply a book to read, it is a practice to live, one that will stretch your mind until it becomes stronger, calmer, and sharper. As you move through these ideas, you'll notice that this journey is not just about intellect, it's about awareness. You will begin to see how emotion and logic dance within every decision, how fear can disguise itself as caution, how confidence can mask arrogance, and how even kindness can be misguided without understanding. The goal is not to strip life of emotion, but to bring balance, to ensure that feeling serves reason, and reason serves truth. In your career, critical thinking becomes the difference between reacting to problems and solving them. It helps you analyze situations objectively, communicate with precision, and make decisions grounded in evidence rather than ego. In your personal life, it becomes a mirror, one that reveals how your perceptions shape your happiness, your conflicts, and even your relationships. The more you master your thinking, the more you master your outcomes. Consider how much time we spend trying to control the external world, chasing success, arguing to be right, clinging to routines that make us feel safe. And yet, all along, the greatest power lies not in control, but in comprehension. When you understand the forces that influence your thinking, your upbringing, your culture, your fears, your ambitions, you no longer live as a passenger in your own mind. You become the driver. You move from reaction to reflection, from chaos to clarity, from living by chance to living by choice. Throughout critical thinking mastery, you'll learn to identify the hidden biases that shape your perceptions, not only the ones that come from others, but the ones that live quietly within you. You'll learn to question your assumptions without falling into cynicism, to engage with perspectives that differ from yours without losing your own center, and to navigate disagreement without hostility. These are not just intellectual skills, they are life skills. They are the foundation of wisdom, empathy, and strength in a rapidly changing world. Students will find in these pages a framework for deeper learning, the ability to analyze arguments, understand context, and form independent conclusions. Professionals will discover tools for sharper decision-making, more persuasive communication, and innovative problem-solving. And for anyone on a path of self-improvement, this book offers a compass, one that points not outward toward opinion, but inward toward awareness. Yet what gives these lessons power is not memorization, but application. The real test of critical thinking is not how well you understand it, but how you use it when life becomes uncertain. When you are faced with a difficult choice, do you pause to evaluate or rush to react? When someone challenges your beliefs, do you listen or defend? When emotions rise, do you let them cloud your reasoning or guide it with clarity? These are the moments when thinking becomes mastery. Every chapter you listen to will bring you closer to that mastery, not through rigid rules, but through reflection and practice. You'll explore the anatomy of reasoning, the traps of cognitive bias, the influence of groupthink, and the habits that strengthen mental clarity. You'll learn to turn analysis into intuition, intuition into insight, and insight into action. Slowly, thinking critically will no longer feel like effort. It will feel like breathing. And as you listen, you may notice the quiet rhythm of the narration, the deliberate pacing, the thoughtful tone. That is intentional. Because at Book Sounds Better You, every word, every pause is crafted to not only inform your mind, but to reach your inner awareness. The part of you that listens not just with the ear, but with the self. This audiobook is more than knowledge in sound. It is clarity in motion. It's meant to be felt as much as understood. So, as you begin critical thinking mastery, take this as your starting point. Every belief you hold, every assumption you carry, every conclusion you've ever made, all of it is open to examination. That is not a threat, it is freedom. The freedom to unlearn what no longer serves you, to rebuild the frameworks that define your thinking, and to step into a life guided by reason, not reaction. Because once you learn to think critically, you stop being controlled by the noise of the world and start directing the symphony within your own mind. This is where mastery begins. Chapter 1: Introduction to Critical Thinking. Have you ever paused to wonder why certain people seem to handle life's most complex challenges with calm precision, while others struggle to make even the simplest decisions? The difference is not always intelligence, opportunity, or education. It is the ability to think critically, to see beyond the surface of things, and recognize the deeper patterns that shape reality. Critical thinking is not a rare talent. It is a learned discipline, a skill that can turn confusion into clarity and uncertainty into confident action. In critical thinking mastery, this concept forms the foundation of everything you are about to learn. The book exists for one purpose: to help you understand how your mind works, how to sharpen it, and how to use it effectively in a world overflowing with information, yet starved for understanding. We live in an age where opinions spread faster than truth, where emotional reactions often replace thoughtful reflection, and where decisions made in haste can define the course of entire lives. In such a world, the ability to slow down, analyze, and evaluate before responding is nothing short of a superpower. Critical thinking is not about being argumentative, skeptical, or dismissive. Rather, it is a way of seeing, a mental habit of approaching information with curiosity, structure, and balance. It is the disciplined process of questioning assumptions, gathering evidence, weighing alternatives, and forming judgments based on logic rather than impulse. When practiced consistently, this skill transforms how you understand yourself, others, and the situations you face every day. Most people, however, misunderstand it. They think critical thinking means rejecting every idea until proven wrong, or finding fault in every opinion that differs from their own. That approach leads only to cynicism and stagnation. True critical thinking is about discernment, not doubt. It is the art of distinguishing what is valid from what merely sounds convincing. It asks you to pause before reacting, to listen before assuming, and to evaluate before concluding. One of the most empowering truths about this skill is that it can be developed. You are not born a critical thinker. You become one through awareness, practice, and reflection. Each time you question a belief, examine an argument, or look for evidence behind a claim, you strengthen your intellectual muscles. Over time, this process rewires how you respond to information, helping you make decisions that are not just faster, but wiser. Think of critical thinking as a mental lens. Without it, your view of the world is blurry and distorted by biases you don't even notice. With it, everything sharpens, patterns emerge, contradictions reveal themselves, and complexity becomes manageable. The clearer your lens, the more effectively you can navigate both practical and emotional dimensions of life. In your professional life, this skill is what distinguishes leaders from followers. Employers across every industry now value critical thinking as one of the most essential abilities of the modern age. It allows you to analyze challenges from multiple angles, anticipate outcomes, and make decisions rooted in reasoning instead of habit. It transforms you from someone who merely reacts to problems into someone who solves them. Critical thinking makes you adaptable, innovative, and composed under pressure, qualities that define not only success, but also respect. In your personal life, the effects are just as profound. The ability to think critically improves how you communicate, how you relate to others, and how you understand yourself. When you learn to step back from emotional reactions, to see conflicts from multiple perspectives, and to evaluate what truly matters in a situation, relationships grow deeper and more authentic. You become more patient, more empathetic, and less likely to fall into the traps of misunderstanding or assumption. Critical thinking strengthens both the heart and the mind, aligning them in harmony. But to truly master this art, you must begin not with others, but with yourself. Every bias, every habit of thought, every unexamined assumption within your mind is like a filter that colors the way you perceive reality. Before you can think critically about the world, you must understand how your own thinking works. You must learn to recognize the moments when your mind jumps to conclusions, when emotion clouds logic, when comfort overrides curiosity. Only through self-awareness can clarity take root. This book will serve as both a mirror and a guide. You'll explore what makes reasoning sound or flawed, how biases shape decision-making, and why the mind often confuses what feels true with what is true. You'll learn how to analyze arguments effectively, evaluate evidence objectively, and strengthen your capacity for rational thought without losing compassion or creativity. The chapters ahead are designed not as lectures, but as lessons in perception and practice. They will help you develop habits that transform how you interpret and respond to the world around you. You'll learn to listen more deeply, read more intelligently, and communicate with more precision. You'll discover how emotion and logic can work together rather than compete, how clear thinking doesn't require detachment, only balance. As you engage with these ideas, remember that critical thinking is not an academic exercise. It is a life skill. It is the quiet strength behind every wise decision, every thoughtful conversation, and every creative breakthrough. It allows you to question without arrogance and believe without blindness. It is what keeps your mind open, even when your heart feels certain. With practice, you will notice that your perspective changes. Situations that once felt overwhelming will become manageable. Problems that seemed impossible will begin to make sense. The same information that once confused you will start to organize itself into patterns and insights. You will think more clearly, decide more confidently, and live more intentionally. Critical thinking does not promise a life without mistakes, but it ensures that every mistake becomes a lesson instead of a setback. It transforms uncertainty into opportunity and makes learning a lifelong pursuit rather than a task. More than that, it gives you freedom from manipulation, from impulsive judgment, from the chaos of an unexamined mind. As we continue through critical thinking mastery, you will be guided step by step toward developing this freedom within yourself. Each concept, exercise, and reflection will bring you closer to understanding how your mind perceives, processes, and decides. You'll begin to see thinking not as something that happens to you, but as something you direct with purpose. Every great achievement, personal or professional, begins not with a burst of inspiration, but with a moment of clarity. And clarity begins with thought. The stronger your thinking, the stronger your decisions. The stronger your decisions, the stronger your life. Let this chapter serve as the foundation of that strength, the first quiet moment where awareness meets intention, and you begin the lifelong journey toward mastering the way you think. Silence, when it finally arrives after the noise of a long day, has a way of revealing what our minds have been hiding. In that quiet space between thought and breath, you begin to see it. How every decision you've ever made was never about what you knew, but about how clearly you could think when the moment demanded it. Leadership isn't born on stages or in titles. It's born in those invisible seconds when no one is watching, when pressure tightens its grip and you choose composure over chaos, clarity over impulse. That is where authority begins, not in commanding others, but in mastering yourself. Because the world doesn't follow the loudest voice, it follows the calmest one, the voice that doesn't rush, doesn't react, but reasons. And that voice can be yours. So, before you turn the page, take one quiet breath and remember, the mind that rules emotion rules the moment, and the one who rules the moment shapes the future. Now, let's step deeper into the hidden architecture of your own thoughts, where clarity is forged and mastery begins. Chapter 2, Understanding Your Thought Patterns. Close your eyes and picture your mind as a vast, uncharted landscape, intricate, layered, and alive. Beneath its visible surface lies an entire world of unseen forces, beliefs that direct your actions, emotions that steer your choices, memories that quietly dictate how you see yourself and others. Within this terrain are hidden valleys of creativity and wisdom, but also cliffs of fear, shortcuts of assumption, and storms of bias. To master your thinking, and, by extension, your life, you must first learn to read this map. You must become the explorer of your own mind. This is where true critical thinking mastery begins, not with clever reasoning or external logic, but with deep self-awareness. Without knowing how your mind works, you cannot guide it. You cannot sharpen what you do not understand. Self-awareness is not a concept reserved for philosophers or psychologists. It is the cornerstone of clear, deliberate thought. It is the ability to observe your mental processes as if you were watching them unfold from the outside, without judgment or interference. When you become aware of your thoughts, you start to notice how they rise, how they repeat, how they pull your emotions in predictable directions. You begin to see how a single event echoes through your mind like a ripple across water, how one comment can spark anger, or one disappointment can spiral into self-doubt. This awareness is not about controlling your emotions, but about understanding the forces that drive them. When you see your thoughts clearly, you stop being a passenger inside your own mind. You become the one steering it. To develop that level of awareness, mindfulness is one of the most effective tools at your disposal. At its essence, mindfulness is the discipline of paying attention, not casually, but with precision and presence. It means observing your thoughts without getting caught in them, much like standing on a bridge and watching a river flow beneath you. You do not need to stop the water or change its course. You simply notice its current. Even 5 minutes of quiet observation each day can reveal more about your thinking than hours of analysis. You may begin to recognize recurring worries, familiar self-criticisms, or subtle mental shortcuts you've taken for years without realizing. Over time, this practice builds a mental distance, a clear space between what you experience and how you respond. That space is where composure, wisdom, and critical thinking are born. Another method that strengthens awareness is reflective journaling. Writing your thoughts on paper transforms the abstract into the concrete. It slows the speed of your thinking just enough for you to see it clearly. When you record your reactions, decisions, and emotional triggers, patterns begin to emerge, patterns that reveal how you interpret the world. Maybe you notice that you tend to magnify small setbacks into major failures, or that you interpret silence as rejection. Perhaps you realize that you avoid conflict by rationalizing passivity as keeping the peace. Each discovery gives you leverage, the power to adjust, refine, and strengthen your thinking. The pen becomes a mirror, reflecting not just what you think, but how you think. But awareness also demands courage. The moment you turn inward, you will uncover things that challenge the stories you've told yourself. You will confront the parts of your thinking that are inconsistent, biased, or driven by fear. The truth is, every human being is vulnerable to distortion. Cognitive biases are not flaws of character. They are natural shortcuts the brain uses to simplify the overwhelming complexity of life. Yet, what saves the thinker from error is recognition. Knowing your biases is not an act of self-criticism. It is an act of strength. Confirmation bias, for example, makes you cling to beliefs that validate what you already think, blinding you to evidence that contradicts it. The availability bias causes you to overestimate the importance of whatever is most vivid or recent in your memory. Anchoring bias locks your judgment to the first piece of information you receive, even when it's irrelevant. Each of these patterns subtly bends reality, shaping how you interpret facts, people, and events. Once you begin to recognize them, however, they lose their power. Awareness breaks their hold. You start to see that not every thought deserves belief, and not every feeling demands action. You become less reactive, more deliberate, more composed. There's another dimension to understanding your thought patterns, one that requires humility and openness, the willingness to seek feedback. It's easy to assume we know ourselves best, but our self-perception is often filtered through pride, fear, or blind spots. Trusted friends, mentors, and colleagues can act as external mirrors, reflecting patterns you might never notice on your own. Ask them not for validation, but for truth. Ask, what habits do you see in me that hold me back? Or how do I come across when I'm under stress? Their answers may sting, but they are gold. The people who dare to give you honest feedback are the ones who give you the keys to deeper awareness. Still, feedback alone is not transformation. You must be willing to pause before reacting defensively, to absorb before responding. This is what separates intellectual growth from ego protection. Every time you choose reflection over resistance, your mental flexibility expands. You become stronger, calmer, and less easily swayed by emotion or pressure. And yet, even with awareness and reflection, resistance will come. The mind does not like to be exposed. It will try to pull you back into old patterns: distraction, justification, denial. You may tell yourself, I'm overthinking. You may feel uncomfortable when faced with truths that dismantle your self-image. But that discomfort is the proof that transformation is happening. Growth rarely feels like progress while it's occurring. More often, it feels like friction. Understanding your thought patterns is not about self-criticism, it's about liberation. Because once you understand how your mind interprets reality, you gain the ability to reshape that interpretation. You stop reacting to life and begin engaging with it intentionally. You stop confusing habit with truth. You begin to think in alignment with your highest values, not your oldest fears. By the end of this process, the landscape of your mind starts to look different. The fog of confusion clears. The terrain becomes familiar. You begin to sense when your thoughts are leading you astray and when they are guiding you toward clarity. The judgments of others lose their sting. Pressure loses its control. You become not just a thinker, but an architect of your own perception, deliberate, composed, and grounded. This understanding is the first great step toward mastery. Before you can reason with clarity, you must know where your reasoning begins. Before you can make better choices, you must understand the machinery that produces them. Self-awareness does not give you all the answers, but it gives you the only thing that makes answers possible: a clear and honest view of your own mind. And from that clarity, everything else in critical thinking, from problem solving to leadership, begins to take form. Listen carefully, because this is the moment when awareness turns into power. The greatest battles you will ever fight won't be against other people. They'll be against the patterns inside your own mind. The habits of thought that whisper old fears, replay old stories, and disguise comfort as truth. You cannot lead others, reason clearly, or decide wisely until you've faced that inner machinery and dared to reshape it. But here's the beauty of it. Once you see your patterns, they can no longer rule you. The storm of reaction begins to calm. Emotion and reason start to move in rhythm, not opposition. You begin to walk through chaos with the steady focus of someone who finally understands the terrain beneath their own feet. That is where authority is born. Quiet, deliberate, unshakable. As we move forward, we'll step deeper into that clarity. Because to master critical thinking, you must not only observe your thoughts, you must learn to discipline them, direct them, and use them to build logic as precise as steel. In the next chapter, we'll journey into the core of reasoning itself, where structure meets insight and the mind learns to think with power. Chapter 3, the fundamentals of critical thinking. Critical thinking begins with structure, the structure of reason, evidence, and disciplined analysis. It is not an abstract idea or a personality trait. It is a deliberate process, a skill that separates clear understanding from confusion, sound judgment from impulse. To think critically means to think with purpose, to use logic and evidence as your compass instead of emotion or assumption. This chapter lays that foundation. At its core, critical thinking rests on two essential elements: logical reasoning and evidence-based thinking. These are the twin pillars that support every sound argument, every wise decision, and every credible conclusion. Without them, thought becomes reaction. With them, thought becomes mastery. Let's begin with logical reasoning, the framework that keeps your thinking precise and consistent. Logical reasoning is the process of forming conclusions that flow naturally from reliable information, not from emotion, bias, or persuasion. It is what allows your mind to move in sequence from premise to conclusion in a way that can be tested, repeated, and trusted. When you reason logically, you are doing what every disciplined mind does. You start from what you know and follow that knowledge toward what can be known. The process sounds simple, but its power lies in its precision. Consider this example. All cats are mammals. Fluffy is a cat. Therefore, Fluffy is a mammal. This is a straightforward case of deductive reasoning. The conclusion cannot be false if the premises are true. Logical reasoning works the same way in complex ideas as it does in simple ones, by demanding clarity, order, and truth. However, not all reasoning is sound. Our minds are clever enough to build arguments that feel logical even when they aren't. That's where logical fallacies come in, the invisible cracks in thought that cause entire arguments to collapse under scrutiny. You've encountered them more often than you realize. The ad hominem fallacy attacks the person making the argument instead of the argument itself. The false dichotomy reduces complex choices to two extremes, as if no middle ground exists. The slippery slope insists that one event will inevitably lead to disaster, without real evidence for such a chain reaction. These fallacies are persuasive because they mimic logic while bypassing it. They appeal to emotion, fear, anger, loyalty, instead of reason. Learning to spot them protects you not only from being misled by others, but from misleading yourself. Once you can identify fallacies in speech, debate, or media, you gain the power to see through illusion, to separate sound reasoning from manipulative rhetoric. And in an age of constant persuasion, in politics, advertising, and even casual conversation, that skill is indispensable. The one who can reason clearly holds an advantage in every area of life because they make decisions grounded in truth, not noise. Yet logic alone is not enough. Logic gives you structure, but evidence-based thinking gives that structure substance. Without evidence, reasoning is an empty framework, elegant but hollow. Evidence anchors thought in reality. It demands that every claim, belief, or conclusion be supported by facts that can be verified, not just feelings that can be justified. Evidence-based thinking requires discipline. It means asking, what supports this idea? Is the source credible? What would change my mind? These are not questions of doubt. They are questions of integrity. They keep your mind honest. In evidence-based thinking, anecdotes are replaced by data, assumptions by proof, and certainty by curiosity. You learn to weigh the quality of your information, not just the quantity. You begin to notice when someone uses emotion to disguise a weak argument, or when selective data is used to manipulate conclusions. To sustain this kind of thinking, you must cultivate three qualities: curiosity, open-mindedness, and intellectual humility. Curiosity is the desire to understand more than what's presented. It compels you to explore beyond the surface, to ask why, how, and what if. It keeps your thinking alive. Without curiosity, knowledge stagnates. With it, knowledge expands endlessly. Open-mindedness is the strength to hold competing ideas without rushing to defend one. It means you allow truth to reveal itself through evidence, not allegiance. Being open-minded does not mean believing everything. It means testing everything with fairness. And finally, intellectual humility, the quiet recognition that your current knowledge is always incomplete. It takes humility to admit when new evidence proves you wrong, to recognize when emotion clouds judgment, and to listen to those who see what you don't. Humility doesn't weaken thought, it refines it. Together, these three qualities form a critical thinking mindset. This mindset is not about skepticism for its own sake, but about discernment. It encourages you to question assumptions, especially your own, and to examine ideas without fear of what you might discover. It builds a habit of reflection rather than reaction. Living with this mindset changes how you interact with the world. You begin to pause before responding, to evaluate before believing, and to look for proof before conviction. You stop chasing validation and start seeking accuracy. You become less reactive to disagreement and more responsive to truth. This level of awareness takes practice and courage. Critical thinking challenges comfort. It requires you to admit that even deeply held beliefs must withstand examination. It demands that you care more about understanding than about being right. And that is why so few people ever master it. It is not because it is complicated, but because it is demanding. The rewards, however, are immense. When you learn to think critically, decisions become clearer, conversations become deeper, and conflicts become opportunities for understanding rather than division. You learn to balance logic with empathy and to act not out of impulse, but out of insight. By the end of this chapter, you now hold the core tools of mastery: logical reasoning to organize your thoughts and evidence-based thinking to ground them in truth. Together, they give your mind the precision and integrity needed to face any problem, personal or professional, with confidence. But one final challenge remains. Even the most disciplined thinker can be swayed by something subtle and invisible, forces that shape judgment before awareness even begins. These are not external influences, but internal ones. They are the quiet biases that guide perception, distort logic, and bend evidence to fit what we already believe. They are called cognitive biases, and every human mind carries them. To truly think critically, you must confront them, because logic and evidence mean little when filtered through distortion. Only by recognizing how your own mind bends reality can you begin to correct it and see the world and yourself as they truly are. That is the next step in your evolution as a thinker, and it begins now. Every great decision, every act of leadership, every moment of composure under pressure begins with one thing: disciplined thought. Logic gives that thought its structure. Evidence gives it its strength. When both are working together, the mind becomes steady, calm, deliberate, and untouchable by noise or fear. Yet even the clearest reasoning can be bent by forces we cannot see. Bias, emotion, and memory, they creep quietly into judgment, twisting facts until they fit our comfort. And this is where most people lose their balance. They mistake instinct for insight, repetition for truth, and confidence for accuracy. But those who rise above, those who think with precision and act with integrity, are the ones who learn to question not only the world, but themselves. They pause long enough to ask, is this truth or is this habit? Because clarity is not found in control, it's found in awareness. The moment you begin to recognize how your own mind can deceive you, you stop being a prisoner of thought and start becoming its master. That is where real critical thinking begins, not in proving your logic right, but in learning to see through the illusions that make it wrong. Chapter 4: Overcoming Cognitive Biases. Every human mind, no matter how intelligent or disciplined, carries hidden distortions, quiet influences that shape how we see, decide, and believe. They're not visible, not intentional, and rarely questioned. Yet they guide our thinking every day, often more powerfully than logic or evidence ever could. These hidden distortions are called cognitive biases, and understanding them is one of the most important steps in mastering critical thinking. Imagine you're playing a game of chess. You study the board, confident in your strategy, certain of your next move. Then suddenly, you realize half your pieces have been invisible to you all along. How different would your decisions have been if you had seen the whole board from the start? That's exactly what happens when biases operate unchecked. We act with partial vision, unaware of what's missing from our view. Cognitive biases are not flaws of character or signs of poor intelligence. In truth, they are survival mechanisms, mental shortcuts our brains develop to process information quickly. They help us make decisions when time or information is limited. In many everyday situations, they're useful. But when life demands complex analysis, strategic decision-making, or deep understanding, these shortcuts can quietly lead us into error. Take confirmation bias, perhaps the most pervasive of them all. It's the mind's tendency to seek information that confirms what we already believe and to ignore what challenges it. It feels comfortable, even satisfying, like reinforcing the walls of a familiar house rather than exploring the world beyond. But it limits growth. Imagine someone convinced that a certain diet is the key to health. They eagerly share every article supporting their view, but dismiss every study that contradicts it. To them, it feels like being right. In reality, it's being trapped. Then there's anchoring bias, the way our minds latch onto the first piece of information we encounter and use it as a reference for everything that follows. The first price you see on a car can affect how fair every later offer feels. The first opinion you hear about someone can color every interaction you have with them. Anchoring gives the illusion of logic, but in truth, it narrows your field of vision before you've even begun. Or consider the availability heuristic, a mental shortcut that makes us judge likelihood by how easily examples come to mind. We fear plane crashes more than car accidents, not because they're more common, but because they're more dramatic and therefore easier to imagine. We assume recent events are more significant simply because they're fresh in memory. The mind confuses vividness with truth. These biases and dozens of others share a dangerous quality. They operate beneath awareness. They make their influence felt not by argument, but by instinct. You rarely notice them in action because they work like background software, silent, automatic, and persuasive. That's what makes them so powerful. The first step to overcoming bias is awareness. The second, and far harder, is correction. Awareness gives you insight. Correction gives you freedom. One effective strategy is to actively seek out perspectives that contradict your own. It doesn't mean abandoning your beliefs. It means testing them. When you expose your views to opposing ideas, you create friction, and friction sharpens thought. Follow writers, scholars, or thinkers who challenge your worldview. Read news from multiple sources, not just those that affirm your stance. Engage in honest dialogue with people who disagree, not to win, but to understand. Each time you do, you stretch the limits of your mental flexibility. Another technique is deliberate questioning, pausing when you feel certain and asking yourself, what else could be true? When you catch yourself jumping to conclusions, slow down and examine the reasoning behind them. Ask, what other explanations exist? What information might I be ignoring? Would I still believe this if it came from someone I disliked? These questions are powerful because they interrupt autopilot thinking. They remind you that certainty is not the same as accuracy. A third strategy is diversity of perspective. Surround yourself with people whose experiences differ from yours. When making decisions, consult with individuals from different backgrounds, industries, or cultures. Their insights reveal blind spots you didn't know existed. What seems obvious to you might look entirely different to someone with another vantage point. Diversity of thought isn't just ethical, it's strategic. It expands your understanding beyond the narrow limits of your own experience. Most important of all is intellectual humility. This is the recognition that your knowledge, however vast, will always be incomplete. It's the willingness to admit when new evidence disproves old assumptions. It's understanding that being wrong is not failure, it's feedback. Intellectual humility frees you from the ego's obsession with being right and replaces it with the deeper satisfaction of getting it right. But overcoming bias doesn't happen without resistance. The mind doesn't like contradiction. It clings to certainty because certainty feels safe. When you confront your own biases, you'll feel discomfort, a tightening in the chest, a small voice defending the old belief. That discomfort isn't a signal to stop. It's a sign you're growing. It means your thinking is being stretched beyond its comfort zone, the very place where mastery begins. Remember, the goal isn't to eliminate bias completely. That's impossible. The goal is to recognize it, to keep it from silently steering your decisions. Awareness creates distance, and distance gives you choice. You can't fight what you can't see, but once you see it, it loses its control over you. As you continue to sharpen your critical thinking, you'll begin to notice these biases in real time, in your decisions, your conversations, your assumptions. You'll catch yourself before leaping to conclusions. You'll pause before defending a belief too quickly, and you'll ask one more question before accepting something as true. That pause, that single moment of reflection, is the mark of an awakened mind. The work of overcoming bias is the work of regaining vision. When the invisible pieces of thought become visible, you reclaim your full mental board. You start to see reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. You begin to lead your mind instead of being led by it. By this point, you have learned not only to question others' reasoning, but to question your own. You've learned that awareness is strength and that clarity comes from friction, not agreement. You've learned that critical thinking is not cold detachment. It's courageous honesty. The mind that can challenge itself is the mind that cannot be manipulated. The person who can confront their own bias is the person who can lead others with integrity. And when that happens, something profound shifts. Your thoughts stop reacting, your reasoning deepens, and your choices become deliberate acts of awareness. That is how true critical thinkers are made, not through intellect alone, but through the courage to face the unseen within themselves. The sharpest mind can still be blinded by what it refuses to see. Bias doesn't announce itself. It whispers, it hides behind confidence, it bends reason until comfort feels like truth. But the moment you catch it, the instant you recognize that distortion for what it is, the illusion breaks. That's the quiet triumph of awareness. You begin to see with both eyes open. You stop reacting to the world as you wish it were and start responding to it as it is. Thought becomes deliberate, judgment becomes fair, and emotion becomes an ally instead of an enemy. Those who master this clarity walk differently through life. They don't rush to prove themselves right. They seek to understand what's real. They lead conversations, teams, and even conflicts with a steady composure that no manipulation can shake. Because the true measure of intelligence is not how much you know, but how honestly you can see. Especially when what you see challenges you. And it's in that discipline, the ability to think beyond bias, beyond comfort, beyond illusion, that real leadership begins to take form. Chapter 5: Effective Problem-Solving Techniques. Every problem you face, no matter how tangled, overwhelming, or impossible it seems, has a structure beneath the chaos. Most people never see it because they panic at the surface, staring at the size of the knot instead of studying the threads that form it. Yet once you learn how to look beneath the complexity, every challenge, no matter how daunting, begins to reveal its logic, its entry point, and ultimately, its solution. That's the essence of effective problem solving, not rushing to fix, but learning to understand. The best thinkers, leaders, and innovators share one powerful skill in common. They approach problems not as obstacles to escape, but as systems to decode. Imagine that same tangled knot again, thick, layered, impossible at first glance. The secret is not force, but clarity. You don't pull harder, you look closer. You separate the threads, identify their directions, and find where they begin. That first, simple act, defining what you're really facing, is the beginning of every great solution. Defining the problem clearly is more than half the work. What we call the problem is often a web of smaller, interconnected challenges that overlap and disguise one another. A struggling business may not have a sales problem. It may have a communication problem, or a leadership problem, or a misplaced focus problem. A relationship conflict might not be about disagreement, but about misunderstanding or unmet expectations. Until you define the true issue, every effort to solve it is like pulling at random threads, exhausting but fruitless. Once you can articulate the problem in simple, specific terms, clarity begins to form. The fog lifts. From that point forward, every step becomes deliberate. But clarity alone isn't enough. You must then expand your understanding through information. Gathering information is the stage most people skip. either out of impatience or overconfidence. Yet information is the oxygen of problem solving. Without it, every decision is guesswork. Cast your net wide. Look beyond the obvious sources. Seek diverse perspectives, historical patterns, and expert insights. Listen to people who see the world differently from you because they notice what you overlook. The more complete your understanding, the more precise your solution will be. Once you've understood the terrain, creativity enters the process. This is the space where logic meets imagination, where the mind begins to explore not what is, but what could be. Generating solutions requires freedom, not restriction. At this stage, judgment is your enemy. The goal is not to decide what will work, but to imagine what might. Some of the most brilliant solutions in history began as ideas people initially laughed at. The art of creative problem solving lies in giving yourself permission to think beyond practicality, at least at first. Later, logic will refine. For now, imagination must lead. Let your mind move in unexpected directions. Let it combine ideas that don't normally belong together. Let it wander, because wandering often leads to discovery. Once possibilities emerge, the next step is evaluation, the return to reason. Now your critical thinking skills become the scalpel that cuts away illusion and wishful thinking. Look at each idea through the lens of feasibility, impact, and consequence. Ask yourself, what could go right? What could go wrong? What resources would this require? What unseen costs might follow? You're not just choosing a solution, you're forecasting its life once released into the real world. From there, action must follow. A plan, no matter how elegant, means nothing without execution. But effective implementation is never impulsive. It's deliberate, structured, and measured. Break your chosen solution into clear, actionable steps. Assign roles if you're part of a team. Create checkpoints for progress and moments for reassessment. The most successful problem solvers treat every plan as a living thing, flexible, adaptable, capable of evolution as conditions change. And once the plan is set in motion, remain alert. Problem solving doesn't end when the decision is made. It continues as results unfold. Monitor outcomes, study what works and what doesn't, and adjust with humility. A rigid mind loses its advantage, an adaptive one thrives. But there's another layer, a deeper technique that separates the good from the great: reframing. Reframing is the ability to see the same problem from an entirely different angle. It's the practice of shifting perspective, of questioning not just the solution, but the way the problem itself has been defined. Often, the limitation is not in our options, but in the way we've described the issue to ourselves. We ask narrow questions and then wonder why the answers feel small. For example, instead of asking, "How can I fix this?" you might ask, "How can I redesign this?" Or, "What if this isn't a problem, but a pattern?" That single shift in language opens doors your mind didn't know existed. Reframing turns frustration into curiosity and converts pressure into possibility. It transforms the emotional weight of unsolvable into the creative energy of what if. Of course, even with clarity, creativity, and structure, you will face moments of frustration. You'll hit mental blocks where nothing seems to work. The human brain is wired to resist uncertainty. It craves closure. When solutions don't come quickly, we panic, overthink, and tighten the knot further. That's when you must do something counterintuitive. Step back. Distance is not avoidance, it's recovery. The best problem solvers know when to stop forcing progress and allow space for insight. Sometimes the mind finds the answer only after it stops trying to. A walk, a pause, a night of rest. These moments are not wasted time. They are silent problem solving in motion. Over time, problem solving becomes more than a skill. It becomes a way of thinking. You begin to approach life itself as a series of solvable systems rather than random crises. You stop reacting and start reasoning. You start looking at challenges not as punishments, but as puzzles, each one revealing something new about your capability, creativity, and resilience. By now, you've built a mental toolkit: the discipline to define clearly, the patience to research deeply, the imagination to create boldly, the reason to evaluate objectively, and the courage to act decisively. Together, they form the architecture of mastery, the ability to face complexity with clarity and turn uncertainty into structure. True problem solving isn't about intelligence. It's about awareness, adaptability, and endurance. It's the calm voice inside that says, "This may take time, but it can be done." And the more you trust that voice, the stronger it becomes. Because the person who knows how to solve problems, thoughtfully, methodically, creatively, becomes someone the world naturally looks to in times of chaos. That kind of confidence doesn't shout, it steadies. It becomes leadership in motion. And as you continue this journey, you'll begin to see that every solved problem, no matter how small, reshapes how you see yourself. You'll realize that the skill of solving is not just about fixing what's broken, but about expanding what's possible. Every problem has a language, and once you learn to read it, nothing feels impossible again. You stop fighting against confusion and begin to work with it, pulling one thread at a time until the knot starts to loosen. That's the quiet elegance of true problem solving. It replaces panic with patience, force with focus, and reaction with reason. Those who master this art don't rush to prove their brilliance. They slow down to understand the pattern beneath the chaos. They lead not by having all the answers, but by asking the right questions, calmly, precisely, persistently. Because real power doesn't come from never facing problems. It comes from knowing how to face them without losing clarity. And when your thinking becomes that steady, measured, deliberate, and unafraid, challenges stop looking like walls and start becoming doors. That is how thinkers evolve into leaders. One solved knot, one clear decision, one calm breath at a time. Chapter 6. Analyzing Information and Arguments. To think critically is to investigate, to look beneath the surface of words, to separate appearance from truth. Imagine yourself as a detective standing at the scene of an intellectual crime. Scattered across the room are fragments of claims, bits of evidence, and traces of conclusions. Your task is to reconstruct what really happened, to determine what's fact, what's fiction, and what's being hidden behind clever persuasion. This is the work of analysis, and it is one of the most vital abilities of the critical thinker. The world we live in runs on arguments. Every opinion, every debate, every advertisement, every policy is built on some chain of reasoning. Yet most people accept these arguments at face value, never asking how they were built. They react to the emotional tone rather than examining the structure underneath. The true thinker does the opposite. They step back, slow down, and examine the skeleton of reasoning that holds an argument upright or exposes its weakness. Every argument, no matter how complex or sophisticated, can be broken down into three essential parts: claims, premises, and conclusions. The claim is what's being asserted, what the speaker wants you to believe or do. The premises are the reasons offered to support that claim. The conclusion is the logical outcome that ties them together, the message the argument is pushing you toward. For example, all dogs are mammals. Fido is a dog. Therefore, Fido is a mammal. Here, the first two statements, all dogs are mammals and Fido is a dog, are premises. They form the foundation. The third statement, Fido is a mammal, is the conclusion that follows naturally from them. This small, simple example demonstrates a truth about reasoning. When the premises are sound and the logic valid, the conclusion must be true. But real-world arguments are rarely this clean. They're filled with emotion, selective evidence, and assumptions that hide beneath the surface. That's why learning to dissect arguments is not just a technical skill, it's a discipline of awareness. You must learn to look for what's said and what's left unsaid. When you encounter an argument, whether it's a speech, an article, or a conversation, begin by identifying its parts. What's the main claim? What reasons are being used to support it? What evidence has been provided? And most importantly, what's missing? Often, the power of persuasion lies not in what's presented, but in what's quietly ignored. After identifying the structure, your next task is evaluation. Evidence is the beating heart of every argument, and your job is to check its pulse. Ask yourself, is the evidence relevant? Is it reliable and verifiable? Does it come from a credible source? Is it strong enough to justify the conclusion? Weak evidence can take many forms. Cherry-picked data that tells only one side of the story, anecdotal claims that sound compelling but lack substance, or emotional appeals that substitute feeling for fact. The more you practice questioning evidence, the more quickly you'll recognize when logic is being replaced by manipulation. As you analyze arguments, you'll begin to notice familiar patterns, certain structures of reasoning that are valid and others that are deceptive. Valid reasoning connects premises to conclusions with clear, rational progression. But invalid reasoning often uses shortcuts, exaggerations, or emotional pressure. For instance, the reasoning in our Fido example is sound because it follows a syllogistic structure. If the premises are true, the conclusion must be true. Yet countless arguments fail this simple test because they rely on what's called fallacious reasoning. Consider the slippery slope fallacy. The idea that one small event will inevitably trigger a chain of disastrous consequences. It's the logic that says, if we allow this one thing, the world will fall apart. Such arguments sound urgent, but lack evidence. Then there's the confusion between correlation and causation, assuming that because two things happen together, one must cause the other. Ice cream sales and drowning incidents both rise in summer, but that doesn't mean ice cream causes drowning. The connection is correlation, not cause. These errors are everywhere, in marketing, in politics, even in casual conversation, because they feel convincing. They play on emotion instead of evidence. Recognizing them doesn't make you cynical, it makes you accurate. It protects you from being swept up by arguments that look strong but collapse under scrutiny. As your analytical skill deepens, you'll also learn to notice the most elusive element of all, the hidden assumption. Every argument carries one, an unstated belief that holds the logic together. Sometimes that assumption is reasonable, other times it's flawed. For example, when someone says, we should cut taxes to stimulate economic growth, the unstated assumption is that lower taxes automatically lead to growth, a premise that may or may not be true depending on context. The key to strong analysis is learning to spot these silent premises and question them. The best way to build this skill is to practice in the real world. Analyze what you see every day, the headlines, the advertisements, the speeches, the debates. Ask what each argument is really saying, what evidence it rests upon, and what assumptions it hides. You'll begin to notice how many arguments sound persuasive, not because they are solid, but because they are emotionally satisfying. Over time, this habit will change the way you listen, read, and think. You'll find yourself no longer swayed by loud voices or clever language. Instead, you'll look beneath the words and ask the one question that matters most. Does the reasoning hold up? Remember, the goal of analysis is not to destroy other people's arguments or to feel superior in debate. The goal is understanding. When you analyze information and reasoning with honesty, you become not a critic, but a truth seeker, someone who looks for accuracy, not victory. You stop reacting to persuasion and start responding to logic. In a world overflowing with information, where data, opinion, and misinformation blend together, this ability becomes your filter. It allows you to move through noise without being consumed by it. You begin to trust your mind, not because it always knows the answer, but because it knows how to question what it's told. By now, you have the tools to take apart any argument, to identify claims, premises, and conclusions, to evaluate evidence, to recognize logical patterns and detect fallacies, to uncover hidden assumptions and weigh them fairly. These are not abstract skills. They are survival tools for an age of endless persuasion. Because the truth is no longer hard to find, it's hard to recognize. The world doesn't suffer from a lack of information. It suffers from a lack of discernment. The person who can think clearly, analyze deeply, and reason fairly holds a rare and powerful form of intelligence, one that cannot be faked and cannot be manipulated. When you reach that point, when your mind is able to look through complexity and see structure, to listen through emotion and hear truth, you are no longer just a participant in the noise of ideas. You become a guide through it. And that perhaps is the quiet mark of a critical thinker. Not that they argue louder than others, but that they think deeper, question wiser, and understand more completely. Every argument you encounter, every opinion, every claim, every confident voice is a test of your awareness. The world will always try to convince you. That's its nature. But the critical thinker doesn't chase persuasion. They dismantle it, study it, and rebuild it until only truth remains. Because clarity is not found in agreeing or opposing. It's found in understanding. The real strength lies in the ability to pause before believing, to question before accepting, and to see the structure behind every sentence. Those who master this don't just win debates, they elevate them. They turn noise into meaning, complexity into order, and confusion into insight. And once your mind learns to hear the logic beneath the words, you'll realize that the loudest argument isn't always the strongest, and the quietest reasoning often carries the deepest truth. Chapter 7: Engaging with Diverse Perspectives. To think clearly, you must learn to see broadly. Every mind lives within its own room, a space painted by experience, culture, education, and belief. But wisdom begins the moment you open the door and step into other rooms, each lit by a different color of understanding. Imagine walking through such a house, every wall a different hue, every window framing a new view of the same horizon. The more rooms you explore, the richer your perception becomes. That is what it means to engage with diverse perspectives. In today's interconnected world, diversity of thought is not a luxury, it is a necessity. The ability to understand, appreciate, and integrate multiple viewpoints is at the very heart of critical thinking. It is what prevents the mind from becoming rigid, what keeps it from mistaking familiarity for truth. When you listen only to voices that echo your own, your understanding narrows. But when you seek out difference, when you invite unfamiliar perspectives into your field of vision, your mind stretches, refines, and matures. Every perspective, even one you disagree with, holds a fragment of truth. Alone, that fragment may seem small, even irrelevant. But when combined with others, when seen from multiple angles, a fuller picture emerges. It's like adding new colors to your palette. The more shades you have, the richer and more accurate your painting of the world becomes. But let's be honest, engaging with perspectives that contradict your own is rarely comfortable. It can feel like a challenge to your identity, a threat to your certainty, or an invitation to conflict. Yet discomfort is the birthplace of growth. Every time you allow yourself to listen without defense, you refine your ability to think without distortion. The mind expands not in moments of agreement, but in moments of friction. The first step in this practice is deliberate exposure, intentionally seeking information that challenges your worldview. This doesn't mean abandoning your beliefs. It means testing their strength. If you lean liberal, read thoughtful conservative writers. If you're rooted in science, explore philosophy or art. If your life revolves around logic, spend time with people who lead with emotion. Each encounter adds dimension to your thinking, forcing your mind to balance reason with humanity. The goal isn't conversion, it's comprehension. You don't have to agree with every idea, you simply have to understand the reasoning behind it. When you can explain another person's perspective as clearly as they can, you've reached the threshold of true understanding. As you engage, practice active listening, a skill too often confused with waiting for your turn to respond. Active listening means hearing with empathy and curiosity. It means asking, why does this person believe this? What experiences shape their view? What fears, hopes, or values are driving their words? The moment you shift from judging to understanding, conversation turns into connection. And then there's empathy, the most underestimated tool of the critical thinker. Empathy is not emotional surrender, it's intellectual strength. It allows you to see the world through someone else's eyes without losing sight of your own. It reveals that behind every opinion, no matter how different, there's usually a human desire that mirrors your own, to be safe, respected, and understood. Recognizing this doesn't make disagreement disappear, but it transforms it from battle into dialogue. One technique that refines this skill is steelmanning, the disciplined practice of building the strongest possible version of someone else's argument before you respond to it. Instead of looking for flaws, you look for coherence. You articulate their point so accurately that they would say, "Yes, that's exactly what I meant." Only then do you offer your perspective. This approach not only deepens respect, but strengthens your reasoning, because if your idea can withstand the best version of the opposition, it can stand anywhere. True engagement with diversity of thought doesn't stop at conversation. It also transforms how you make decisions. The more perspectives you consider, the more nuanced and durable your choices become. When you look at a problem through multiple lenses, cultural, emotional, logical, ethical, you see details others miss. You understand consequences others overlook. Decision-making becomes not just smarter, but wiser. A practical method for integrating multiple perspectives is playing devil's advocate with yourself or your team. Challenge your preferred idea. Argue against it. Ask what could go wrong. what assumptions you might be making, or what voices might be missing from the discussion. When you do this with honesty, flaws that once hid in plain sight suddenly become visible. Yet, engaging with diverse viewpoints does not mean surrendering your values or diluting your beliefs until everything seems equally valid. Clarity still matters. The goal is not endless agreement, but thoughtful understanding. It's about seeing more so you can choose better, holding firm to what you believe while remaining open to what you don't yet know. This balance of confidence and openness defines intellectual maturity. A rigid mind clings to its own color and calls it truth. A wise mind recognizes that truth, like light, contains every color within it. To live this way requires humility, patience, and courage. It demands that you resist the temptation of certainty, that you remain curious, even when it's uncomfortable. It asks you to listen longer, speak slower, and think deeper. But in return, it gives you something few people ever achieve: genuine understanding. When you become fluent in multiple perspectives, you stop fearing difference. You begin to see disagreement not as division, but as potential, the tension that forges better ideas and fairer decisions. You gain the ability to walk into any room, any conversation, and see value where others see conflict. And that ability, to understand without surrendering, to challenge without hostility, to bridge divides without losing your footing, is what turns ordinary thinkers into extraordinary leaders. Because leadership, at its core, is not the power to convince others that you're right. It's the wisdom to understand why others believe they are. When you reach that point, when you can listen without losing balance and stand firm without closing your mind, you'll realize that engaging with diversity is not about compromise. It's about evolution. It's about learning to see the world, not through one narrow lens, but through the full spectrum of human experience. And once you do, your thinking and your life will never be one-dimensional again. Understanding doesn't come from standing firm in your own corner. It comes from daring to step into someone else's. The moment you cross that invisible line between what's familiar and what's foreign, your world quietly expands. You begin to see that disagreement doesn't have to divide, it can refine. That difference doesn't weaken truth, it reveals its depth. The minds that lead with wisdom are never trapped in one angle of vision. They move between perspectives with grace, listening, weighing, connecting, until clarity rises from contrast. That is how insight is born, not from echo chambers, but from the meeting of opposites. When you learn to think this way, calm, open, unthreatened by diversity, your presence changes. You no longer seek to win the room, you steady it. You become the one who can turn noise into understanding, and that, more than intellect or eloquence, is what defines a true critical thinker. Chapter 8. Decision-making strategies for success. Every choice you make is a turning point. Some are small, fleeting, almost invisible, while others carve permanent directions into the story of your life. Picture yourself standing at a crossroads with countless paths stretching out before you. Some roads seem clear and inviting, others disappear into fog. You can't see the full journey ahead, only fragments of it. And yet, you must decide. That is the essence of decision-making. The art of choosing with courage when certainty is nowhere to be found. Effective decision-making is not a single moment of brilliance. It is a process, a deliberate sequence of steps that blend reason, intuition, and reflection. Most poor decisions don't come from a lack of intelligence, but from skipping this process, from rushing, reacting, or deciding before understanding. The best decisions, by contrast, are born from patience, structure, and the willingness to pause before moving forward. The process begins with clarity, the ability to define what exactly is being decided. Many people make choices without ever framing the real question. They focus on symptoms instead of sources, reacting to surface-level issues rather than root causes. Before you decide what to do, you must understand what problem you're solving. Clarity cuts through confusion. It transforms chaos into focus. Once you've defined the decision, you gather information, not endlessly but wisely. Too little knowledge invites mistakes, but too much can trap you in indecision. The goal is balance, to gather enough insight to make your choice informed, but not so much that you become paralyzed by endless possibilities. Seek information from reliable, diverse sources. Look for evidence, patterns, and perspectives. Ask questions that dig beneath the obvious. What do I really know? What assumptions am I making? What evidence supports or challenges my view? When information begins to take shape, the next step is evaluation, laying out your options. This is where your critical thinking skills come alive. Each option is a possible path. Each carries risks, benefits, and consequences. Analyze them not only through logic, but also through alignment with your values. What outcome serves your long-term purpose, not just your immediate comfort? What decision, when you look back years from now, will still feel right? A powerful tool for structuring this process is the decision matrix, a method that forces clarity through comparison. Picture a table with your options listed on one side and your decision criteria, things like cost, time, impact, or alignment with your goals, along the top. You then evaluate each option against each criterion, scoring them objectively. What emerges is a visual representation of reason, a clear view of where emotion may be clouding judgment. But not every decision can be solved by data alone. The human mind carries another form of wisdom, intuition. Intuition is not magic or guesswork. It's pattern recognition built from experience. It's the quiet voice formed from everything you've learned, observed, and lived. The key to mastery is balance. Logic provides structure. Intuition adds insight. Together, they form judgment. Rely on logic to verify your intuition, and intuition to guide where logic can't yet reach. No matter how thorough your process, uncertainty will remain. Life rarely grants complete information. You can't predict every variable, but you can prepare your mind to handle unpredictability with grace. This is where scenario planning becomes invaluable. Imagine different futures. What if the best-case scenario happens? What if the worst does? What if reality falls somewhere in between? By visualizing multiple outcomes, you loosen the grip of fear and replace it with readiness. Equally important is knowing the pitfalls that sabotage good decision-making. One is analysis paralysis, the endless search for more certainty before acting. Perfectionism masquerades as wisdom, but it is often fear in disguise. Remember, inaction is also a decision, and usually the costliest one. In most cases, a timely, thoughtful decision beats a delayed, flawless one that never arrives. Another trap is groupthink, the tendency for teams or communities to prioritize harmony over honesty. When everyone agrees too quickly, it's often because someone is afraid to disagree. True collaboration invites dissent. If you lead a group, appoint someone to play the role of devil's advocate, not to sow conflict, but to keep thinking alive. A healthy challenge sharpens clarity, silence dulls it. When the weight of choice feels overwhelming, simplify. One technique is the 5 whys, asking why 5 times in succession to uncover the root cause of a problem. Each answer reveals a deeper layer of truth. Another is the Eisenhower matrix, which helps you separate what is urgent from what is important. These tools don't make decisions for you, they illuminate them. Reframing can also unlock clarity. When you feel stuck, ask a new question. Instead of asking, "What should I do?" ask, "What outcome do I want to create?" Or, "What principle should guide this decision?" The way you frame the question determines the direction of your thought. A clear question always leads to a clearer answer, but even the most refined process cannot remove risk. Every choice involves uncertainty. That is the price of agency. What defines effective decision makers is not that they avoid risk, but that they manage it with awareness. They understand that clarity and control are not the same thing. You may not control the outcome, but you can always control the process, how thoughtfully, honestly, and courageously you decide. To make peace with uncertainty, you must cultivate flexibility, the willingness to adapt as new information arises. No decision is final. Every path can evolve. The best thinkers treat decisions as living systems, adjusting and improving as they move forward. Confidence, in this sense, is not stubbornness. It is resilience in motion. When you begin to master this process, decision-making stops feeling like pressure and starts feeling like empowerment. You no longer freeze before choices. You move through them with clarity and calm. You stop asking, "What if I'm wrong?" and start asking, "What can I learn if I am?" Because ultimately, good decisions don't guarantee perfect outcomes. They guarantee growth. Each decision you make, successful or not, sharpens your insight, strengthens your intuition, and teaches you something no analysis ever could. By now, you've learned how to define problems clearly, gather evidence intelligently, evaluate options with balance, and act decisively without fear. You understand that wisdom in decision-making lies not in eliminating uncertainty, but in being at peace with it. And from that peace, true leadership emerges, the kind of leadership that doesn't chase perfection, but moves forward with purpose, patience, and trust in the process itself. Because in the end, it's not the number of right choices that defines your success. It's the steadiness of the mind that makes them. The hardest part of any decision isn't choosing between right and wrong. It's choosing between two paths that both carry risk. The difference between hesitation and confidence lies in how you think, not how much you know. The decisive mind is not fearless, it's prepared. It doesn't demand certainty. It learns to move wisely without it. Great decision makers are not gamblers of chance, they are architects of direction. They know that clarity is built step by step, defining, weighing, listening, trusting, adjusting. They act not because they know the future, but because they trust their process enough to walk through uncertainty with calm conviction. Because success is rarely a single brilliant choice. It's the discipline of choosing well, again and again, even when the path ahead is still shrouded in mist. And the one who learns to do that doesn't just make decisions, they create momentum. They don't wait for life to reveal the road. They shape it, one deliberate step at a time. Chapter 9, Building Mental Resilience. Picture yourself as a great oak standing in the heart of a storm, roots gripping the earth, branches bending but never breaking. Around you, the wind roars, the rain strikes, and the world seems to rage in chaos. Yet deep inside, you are steady. You do not resist the storm. You yield just enough to survive it. And when the skies finally clear, you're not weaker for what you've endured. You're stronger, taller, wiser. That is the essence of mental resilience, not the absence of struggle, but the art of withstanding it with grace. Resilience is the invisible armor that protects the mind when life tests its limits. It's what allows you to keep moving when logic says to stop, to keep believing when circumstances say to give up. But resilience isn't about cold endurance or suppressing emotion. It's not about pretending you're unaffected by pain. True resilience is a living, breathing process, one that adapts, flexes, and grows. It's about the ability to face hardship, absorb it, and still rise with purpose intact. At its foundation, resilience begins with emotional intelligence, the capacity to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions before they manage you. The difference between breaking under stress and bending through it often lies not in strength, but in awareness. When you can see your emotions clearly, when you can pause before reacting, breathe before responding, you take control of the storm inside before it controls you. Building this emotional balance doesn't mean ignoring or suppressing feelings. It means observing them with honesty and curiosity. When anger arises, ask what fear it's protecting. When sadness lingers, ask what loss it's teaching. When anxiety tightens the chest, ask what uncertainty lies beneath it. Each emotion carries information, not as an enemy to silence, but as a message to understand. One of the most powerful ways to cultivate this awareness is through mindfulness meditation, the practice of anchoring your attention to the present moment without judgment. Mindfulness trains the mind to witness, not wander, to notice, not react. Through consistent practice, you begin to catch the space between stimulus and response, that brief, sacred pause where clarity lives. In that pause, something remarkable happens. You gain choice. You learn that while you cannot control what life throws at you, you can always control how you meet it. Over time, mindfulness quiets reactivity and strengthens presence. It gives you the ability to see clearly even when emotion clouds the sky. And in that clarity, resilience takes root. The second pillar of mental resilience is the growth mindset, a term coined by psychologist Carol Dweck. A growth mindset is the belief that intelligence, skill, and character are not fixed traits, but evolving capacities. It shifts the inner dialogue from "I can't do this" to "I can't do this yet." When you adopt this mindset, failure stops being an identity and becomes a teacher. Every setback transforms into data, every mistake into feedback. Instead of collapsing under pressure, you ask, what can this teach me? What strength is being built through this challenge? Growth-minded people don't fear difficulty. They invite it, knowing that struggle is the soil where progress grows. The combination of emotional intelligence and a growth mindset creates a powerful inner framework, one that turns adversity into fuel rather than friction. You stop interpreting pain as punishment and start seeing it as preparation. You stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" Yet resilience is not built only in the hard moments. It is sustained in the quiet ones. It grows through daily practices that strengthen your mind's capacity for stability and renewal. Rest becomes as important as effort. Reflection becomes as vital as action. Gratitude, too, plays its part, not as a naive optimism, but as a grounding force that reminds you of what remains strong when everything else feels uncertain. When you practice gratitude, you redirect focus from what's lost to what's left, from what's missing to what's meaningful. Even in chaos, there's always something steady, a lesson, a person, a possibility, and noticing it trains your mind to find balance in motion. Resilience also thrives in connection. No oak grows strong in isolation. Its roots intertwine with others underground. In the same way, human resilience deepens through community. Support, empathy, and shared strength are not signs of weakness. They're proof of wisdom. Asking for help, admitting vulnerability, and leaning on others when needed don't diminish your independence. They strengthen your humanity. At times, resilience requires courage not to fight harder, but to rest longer. To recognize that pauses are not defeats, but recalibrations. That healing is part of endurance. Because even the strongest minds fracture when they forget to renew. Building resilience also means developing mental flexibility, the ability to adapt when plans fail, when certainty dissolves, when the world changes faster than expected. Rigid minds break under pressure, flexible ones survive. This flexibility doesn't mean inconsistency, it means evolution. It means knowing when to persist and when to pivot, when to hold ground and when to let go. Perhaps the most powerful realization of all is that resilience isn't something you wait to develop when life gets hard. It's something you build in advance. Every small act of discipline, every moment of mindfulness, every decision to stay composed under stress strengthens your roots long before the storm arrives. Resilience is not about winning every battle. It's about rising after each fall with greater awareness and softer edges. It's the strength to keep your heart open in a world that keeps testing it. By now, you understand that mental resilience is not a shield that blocks life's difficulties. It's a foundation that allows you to stand tall through them. It's built from emotional awareness, mindfulness, flexibility, and a mindset that sees growth in every challenge. And once you master this, you'll notice something extraordinary. The same storms that used to frighten you now fuel you. You'll stop asking for the wind to calm. You'll learn to steady your roots instead. Because in the end, resilience isn't about what happens to you. It's about who you choose to become because of it. Close your eyes for a moment and let everything you've heard settle. The words, the ideas, the reflections, all of it has led you here, to this still, quiet space where learning becomes something deeper, understanding. You've just completed critical thinking mastery, but the truth is, this isn't the finish line. It's a threshold. You're standing at the point where knowledge turns into wisdom, where thinking becomes living. Because critical thinking at its highest level isn't a classroom skill, it's a life skill. It's how you move through uncertainty without losing clarity. It's how you see truth in a world that constantly tries to disguise it. And right now, that ability, your ability to think with intention, to question with courage, to decide with balance, is what the world needs most. Take a breath and think about how much has changed within you. Maybe not loudly, but quietly. You notice more. You react slower. You listen deeper. You catch the assumptions behind words, the emotion behind logic, the truth hidden beneath noise. You don't just consume information anymore. You engage with it. You shape it. You make it yours. That's the quiet transformation of a disciplined mind. And this is where the real journey begins. Because now, every day is your practice ground. Every decision, every conversation, every doubt becomes an invitation to think more clearly, to respond more wisely. When you read something that makes you angry, pause. Not to silence emotion, but to understand it. When you hear someone disagree with you, listen. Not to argue, but to see what truth they might be holding that you haven't seen yet. When you face a hard choice, breathe. Not to delay, but to choose from reason, not fear. That's what critical thinking looks like in the real world. Not perfection, not control, but awareness. Because the real strength of a thinker isn't in knowing all the answers. It's in asking better questions. You've built something rare here, the capacity to stay calm in confusion, to think for yourself when others follow the crowd, to analyze without losing empathy, and to believe in truth even when it's uncomfortable. That's not ordinary intelligence. That's character. So let this be your reminder. What you've learned here is not meant to make you untouchable. It's meant to make you unshakable. There's a difference. You see, critical thinking is not cold or detached. It's deeply human. It asks you to care about understanding, not just about being right. It teaches you that compassion and clarity can exist together, that logic and emotion don't have to compete. They can collaborate. And when they do, you don't just think better, you live better. You lead conversations with grace instead of pride. You navigate disagreement with curiosity instead of fear. You stand your ground, but you also stay open. That's what mastery looks like. Not dominance, but balance. At Book Sounds Better You, we believe that growth begins the moment you decide to think differently. Not louder, not faster, but deeper. You've taken that step. You've proven that your mind is not just capable of intelligence, but of transformation. So from here forward, use it. Use it in the quiet moments, when you're reading, reflecting, making sense of something that doesn't add up. Use it in the difficult moments, when emotion pulls you one way and reason another, and you have to choose which voice to follow. And use it in the defining moments, when your choices will shape not just outcomes, but who you become in the process. That's where critical thinking reveals its true power. Not in the brilliance of the mind, but in the integrity of the self. Remember, you will not always be right. No one is. But if you stay open, you will always be growing. And that's what this was always about. Evolution, not perfection. The world will continue to change. Opinions will clash, facts will blur, truth will shift beneath the weight of noise. But the person who can think calmly through the noise, who can separate light from heat, clarity from confusion, will always find their way. That person can lead, inspire, and protect others from being swept away by impulse or manipulation. That person can be you. You've spent these hours sharpening your most powerful tool, your mind. You've learned to slow it down, to question it, to train it to serve truth rather than ego. And when you live this way, something subtle but extraordinary happens. Peace follows. Not the peace of a quiet world, but the peace of a quiet mind. So, before this journey closes, take one last moment for gratitude. For yourself. You've done something not everyone dares to do. You've chosen to think, to grow, to question. That takes courage in a world that rewards speed over depth. Thank you, truly, for walking this path with me, with us, with Book Sounds Better You. Your time, your attention, your openness, they are precious, and they are exactly what make this journey meaningful. But don't stop here. Let this be the starting line for a new way of living. Keep learning, keep questioning, keep thinking critically, not because the world tells you to, but because your own integrity demands it. Let this way of thinking seep into everything you do, how you lead, how you love, how you listen. Let your clarity become your quiet power, your awareness your anchor, your reasoning your compass. Because in the end, the greatest thinkers aren't the ones who win arguments. They're the ones who build understanding. And that's what I wish for you. May your thoughts be steady, your words thoughtful, and your actions guided by truth. May your curiosity never fade, and your courage never waver. And may you walk through this world, not louder, but clearer, calmer, and wiser than before. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing critical thinking mastery. And thank you for letting Book Sounds Better You be a part of your growth. Now go out there, think bravely, act wisely, and live with the kind of awareness that turns thought into strength and strength into peace. Because when your mind is clear, the whole world begins to make sense.